Across Britain, thousands of historic buildings have been neglected. Their owners struggling to restore them because of planning restrictions, design problems or lack of money. Luckily, some romantics do take on the challenge of converting and restoring these forgotten gems. But it isn't for the faint-hearted.
It's sat here and it's falling apart.
I think it can push you to the limit, actually.
We have to find a way of going this done, because if we don't, then we lose everything.
They're often churches, mills and barns, but also factories, warehouses and industrial buildings that are often abandoned because they're so difficult for residential conversion. These buildings have as much rich history and tell as many fascinating stories about our past as any stately home or medieval castle.
It's got such a rich history. We want to do it for all the people before you.
As an architect, I relish the challenge that these unusual buildings give us when we're trying to create a place called home. This time, I meet a couple of designers restoring a pumping station on a tiny budget.
I will get the money from somewhere.
And with costs mounting, they need as much help as they can get.
I'm a terrible decision maker.
A lot of artistic people who've got no common sense.
The counties of Hertfordshire and Essex are divided by the River Lee, which for centuries have been the main transport route for East End traders. Here in Newgate Street Village, Ali and Matt Gray have purchased this majestic but forgotten Victorian pumping station.
These are palaces of industry, and so it's such a privilege to live in one. You know, I take myself back in time, and it's amazing to be in that environment.
They bought the pumping house for £750,000, having sold their two-bedroom flat in London. They plan to camp on site in the small boiler house next to the main engine room, while the conversion and restoration goes on, with what they call Phase 1, as they only have a modest budget of just £60,000.
Definitely never imagined it would be this. This was just so beyond our expectations of what we'd ever be able to afford or find or anything.
Both are designers in London, so we'll be commuting at least 2 hours a day to keep the money coming in. And with 2 young children in tow, this project is going to push them to the limit.
Take any one designer, stick him in a room, he's not nearly half as good as with another person. Design, I think, is a collaborative process. We do disagree.
Definitely, and where we disagree, things come to a halt and no progress is made, and then, you know, we eventually get fed up and one concedes. So, one concedes. Yeah.
I love the scale and grandeur of Victorian industrial buildings, and I'm keen to see how our designer couple plan to convert their large spaces, as they're always an architectural challenge.
A lot of people were after it.
I'm not surprised, because when you've got a building like this, which has stood here for years and years, looking so idyllic in this part of the world, the demand for something like this is huge.
It was at the very top limit of what we could afford.
Okay.
Yeah.
We bought it off the chap. He'd bought it to restore it or to convert it, and I think he'd started off with very good intentions, but as it went further down the line, it was clear that the quality of the build had...
We're suffering, should we say?
Yeah, well, the thing that jumps out to me straight away is that there's UPVC windows in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who on earth would put UPVC windows in a
know
building
what
like
they
this?
Yeah, it's an interesting choice, yes.
We're keeping it.
You better not be keeping them. You better not be bloody keeping them.
No.
They are awful, aren't they? Well, you've bought yourself a fantastic building. I mean, it's sad that someone's ruined part of it. Should we go inside and have a look?
The pumping station is arranged in a T-shaped plan. The boiler room where they're currently living temporarily has already been unsympathetically renovated. This will be Phase 2 of the restoration, which will be completed at a later date, when they have more money. Phase 1, which they're about to start, is the main engine room. It's a 1,600 square foot space, which used to house the steam-driven pumping engines.
Oh, look at that. What a fantastic space. God, I've been inside a church. I love the height and those fantastic timbers above, which are really beautiful.
Unlike the functional utility buildings of today, The Victorians built theirs with pomp and pride, using materials such as iron, steel and glass. They adopted a variety of decorative styles, which included Gothic Revival and Neoclassical. Even though this was a smaller rural pumping station, the exposed glazed brickwork, sandstone arch window frames and pine beams are typical examples of Victorian industrial architecture. The building is not listed, but it's still an important local landmark.
Just compare the place that you used to live in London, compared to what you're going to be living in now.
Well, it was about this big.
How big? This big?
Yeah.
Just
was-
this area here,
You can-
that was the size of your flat?
You can fit 5 of our flats into this.
With such a blank canvas to work from, I'm intrigued to see what their plans are. The restoration of the boiler room, where they're temporarily living, is being left to a later date. Their design for the engine room requires splitting the main space into 2 levels. Downstairs, it will contain 2 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and a double-height kitchen and living room. Upstairs, there'll be 2 more bathrooms, 2 bedrooms for the kids, and Ali and Matt's master bedroom suite. Carving up a space that has tall Victorian windows is always the biggest challenge with a conversion project.
I suppose the main point is, how do you subdivide these windows? Because you're going to have the first floor cutting across them. It's the classic design problem that you have with churches, barns, buildings like this, where you've got big tall windows and you're having to functionally divide the space in section to make it work.
Ali and Matt plan to solve this problem by designing a floor that is built back from the windows. The other big challenge is the design of the replacement window frames. I think aesthetically, both of these decisions will determine the success of this restoration.
So the windows are a big decision, really, aren't they? Do you know which direction you want to go in? Are you going to be modern or traditional? What are you going to do?
We're still a bit torn. I mean, we're definitely erring on the side of period windows.
I think we'd also be very open to the idea of just a sheet of glass.
But I think the design that you've got is spot on, actually. It's just a case of getting the detail right on windows, finishes, and what's appropriate for the building.
Having a budget of just £60,000 is going to be incredibly tight. Replacing the windows alone could cost them at least half of that. Luckily, living on site means they can monitor the bills closely, and as Ali is on maternity leave, she's decided to project manage the early stages. This cost saving on a site manager is tiny, so I'm keen to hear what their other money-saving plans are.
You're much better off going to an architect and a site manager and getting them to do a light touch on the build instead of them being there every day. So you do the management, general management, get advice from an architect and advice from a site manager.
It's going to be really tricky, isn't it? Because you've never project managed something like this before. You've got a small part of the bank now. You start, you see how far that money goes, then you earn some more money, put it back in the bank. So you've probably got absolutely no idea how long this is going to take.
It's got to be done this year. The building was seemingly done, but actually we're stripping everything out and starting again. So we're removing value before we add it back again. But that's just something we've got to do to build what, give this building the credit it deserves.
This pumping station is indeed in need of some tender and loving care. Just because an old building isn't listed doesn't justify the use of inappropriate or poor quality materials. A conversion like this needs a sensitive approach.
The problem for Matt and Ali is they've got to strip all of that back to get back to the beautiful, essential elements that this old building has. But unfortunately, they spent so much money buying the building, they haven't got much left in the pot to restore it.
Ali and Matt Gray bought this Victorian water pumping station for £750,000, which left only £60,000 for its restoration. They'll have to make good the work a previous developer had already started, adding even more pressure to the budget. But before any structural work can commence, they need to decide how to replace the existing UPVC windows with more appropriate ones.
No snow today. Hi, George. Beautiful sunshine, thank God for that. How are you? You all right?
Very well.
I've come back to give them some ideas and discuss what in my mind is the most important part of this restoration.
The windows on this building are everything, aren't they? So I tried to go back to find some imagery of what the original building was like. This is a shot from the 1930s.
I've managed to find some original photos of what the water pumping station used to look like, and what they show clearly is that the windows were divided into 3 separate panes. A major decision for Matt and Ali to make is what material the new window frames will be made out of.
If you want it to look as thin and slender and beautiful as possible,
Yeah.
then metal's going to be better.
Yeah.
Timber's just going to be a little bit thicker on the frame.
Once they'd decided on the material, they then need to decide how to configure the window panes.
I think the 2 big decisions are how are the windows divided up,
Yeah.
how many panels are in there, and do we have openable windows or not. If you've got enormous windows and you have lots of openable panels, it doesn't really matter that much about the thickness of the frame, but because yours are very tall
Yeah.
and very narrow and slim, the thickness of that frame is everything.
For me, our choices are 2. We either do exactly what you've got there, so we've got 3 large panes, or we subdivide it into much smaller panes, which is a style of the period, which may or may not have been in the building and have metal.
It's a tricky one, isn't it?
It is a tricky one.
Have we resolved that? We haven't, have we?
Not entirely, no.
I think steel windows will look fantastic, but it will hammer their budget of £60,000. One of these windows alone could cost as much as £2,000, and with 12 windows to replace, they might need a compromise. For now at least, they can get on with reclaiming 2 giant stones, which used to anchor the steam pumping engines, which they plan to cut up into floor tiles.
And they must be like 2 tons each.
Yeah, can't throw it away.
It's a more expensive way to create stone flooring, but Ali feels it retains some of the history of the building.
I love that. Reusing, recycling, little pieces of history
That's
into the
right.
parts of the building.
The other historical parts that make this building unique are the very bricks it's built with. Untouched for over 100 years, Ali and Matt want to leave them exposed inside, which means a massive clean-up job is required. This sandblasting is finally bringing the colour of the bricks back to their former glory, and breathing new life into this forgotten building. Juggling childcare and the project management of the build is a race against time, as Ali's maternity leave will soon end, and they'll be forced to employ a site manager. So she's keen to get as much done as possible.
I'm after only 50 bricks.
To keep costs down, she's hired a team of brickies who are willing to work for less and do longer hours.
I've got these guys all week. How many days work? How can you keep yourself busy? And I'm paying them by the day. So it's up to me to make sure that their time is most efficient.
Ali and Matt have also commandeered the help of 2 passionate locals who know the building well and are keen to help. Mike Sutcliffe is a local architect and Dave Wood is a builder, who between them will bring years of much needed experience.
We drive past it every day. We wonder what was going to be done with it. It's nice to see these old buildings being brought back into life again.
With Matt commuting into London every day, he's spending less time on the build. But today he's found some time to oversee the cutting of the reclaimed stones from the engine room. Along with Mike, his local architect, I've joined them to see the large blocks being delicately cut to create new floor tiles.
Well, should we start the cutting and hopefully none of this will fall apart and go horribly wrong?
I'm so looking forward to this.
This is York Stone, which is a tight-grained sandstone known for its durability. Traditionally it would have been cut by hand, but this wire saw will get the job done in minutes rather than hours. Once the stone has been cut to the agreed spec, the sheets are ready to be carefully broken off so that they can be cut into tiles.
You ready? Whoa! No, I'm good. I'm going to break the top bit now. This has been in the building since 1888. And you think, oh, well, it's an old piece of stone, it must be really strong. But actually, bizarrely enough, it's not. Look, because it's sandstone. Look at that. You've actually got to be quite gentle with that. The opposite of what I was.
The final cutting creates all the tiles Ali and Matt need for their new living room and master bedroom suite.
Perfect, that. There you go, mate. is your first floor tile.
Isn't that amazing?
124 years that's been sitting there in the building. It's beautiful. Really, really, really beautiful.
As Matt and Ali are keen to preserve as much of the pumping station as possible, I'm intrigued to find out more about its history. So I've come to Abbey Mills in East London. Built in 1868, it was Britain's first water pumping station and is still operating today. I'm meeting John Leddard, who has worked for Thames Water all his life and knows everything there is to know about London's water supply.
I used to call this the Mosque of the Marshes.
The Mosque of the Marshes.
It's a temple to sewage.
Temple to sewage.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
That's pretty appropriate, actually.
This huge building was the inspiration for smaller pumping stations built up and down the country. Built by Joseph Bazalgette 20 years before our pumping station, this was the centrepiece of a new network of sewers built beneath London, after contamination levels in the capital had reached epic proportions.
Obviously, this is a big, big building. The one that I'm dealing with is way smaller.
Oh yeah, this one we're in is sewage treatment. The one you're interested in is clean water. But both are reflective of the same Victorian engineering. What we've got here is reflected in Donegal Hill.
In 1875, the Public Health Act was passed, and a regional network of pumping stations was planned.
That is unbelievable, isn't it?
As the population grew, newer pumping stations like this one were being built to service a growing nation of bath lovers. Increased local demand for fresh water in Cheshunt meant that in September 1888 it was announced in the local press that a brand new water pumping station was to be built halfway up Donegal Hill.
The Cheshunt Local Board of Health, having applied to the local government board for sanction to borrow £15,000 for works of water supply, water would be pumped through a rising main by engines in duplicate, each capable of lifting 600,000 gallons of water in 24 hours.
Finally, Cheshunt had its own supply of fresh water that was being drawn up from the aquifer deep below the ground up until its decommission in the 1970s. It's a testament to Victorian design and engineering that our building is still standing today. Three months down the line, and Ali has gone back to work. Dave, the local builder, has taken over as site manager. He's got the expertise to oversee the main structural works and satisfy all the planning and building regulations so they can finally begin the structural work. With some of the blockwork now constructed, they can begin to fit joist hangers to fix the first floor in place. But Dave's already concerned about Matt and Ali's £60,000 budget, as things don't seem to add up.
The windows have got to be changed. At what stage they'll need to be changed is really up to the client's pocket, really. Because at the end of the day, they're going to cost a lot of money. This area alone, for these windows you see in here, is about 36 grand, just on windows alone. And that is a hell of a lot of money to spend on a project like this.
Having only budgeted £60,000 for the entire project, this seems way outside what Ali and Matt can afford. And it concerns me that they still haven't made a decision about the windows. At the moment, all the money is going on the detail, as Ali's trusty brickies continue to do a masterful job restoring the brickwork. This careful and precise method, called tuck pointing, was developed in the late 18th century to show off red-coloured bricks and make the walls look more refined. It was used extensively in Victorian buildings, and now they're using the same lime putty and silver sand ribbon to restore these majestic walls. But 2 weeks later, with the decision still not made about the windows, progress is slowing down.
We've come up with a mini programme for the next 2 months, and we've said to them that's what's got to happen in that 2 months. If you want to finish this part of the project by Christmas, that's got to happen. If it doesn't happen, you're not going to finish. It's as simple as that.
Because Ali and Matt aren't making decisions quick enough, I'm concerned that the build isn't moving forward. Matt has a rare day off, and I want to find out how the project is going.
Ali was here, she was literally here, wasn't she? She would come out and make a decision, go back in, get on the phone, order whatever needed ordering. When you're in full-time jobs, that's tough.
It is tough. I'm a terrible decision maker. Until I make the decision, then I'm absolutely certain. We had a meeting the other day with Mike the architect and Dave, the site manager, Ali and I, and we just went through everything and what was holding everything back. It was like everything in red, pretty much Ali and I.
I know how frustrating this can be for the builders. I'm keen to find out from Dave, their site manager, what impact these delays in decision-making are having.
The thing is, at the moment, the client is still making up their mind.
I think Matt kind of drifts.
A lot of artistic people have got no common sense. You know, you look at Van Gogh cuts his ear off and something, you think, Christ, you know, what sort of people are you dealing with here? Like, imagine doing a job for him, like, you know. You upset him one day, cutting the other ear off. No, in all honesty, they are coming round to the idea now that they've got to stop to knuckle down and do things.
Well, they've got to stop dreaming.
Stop dreaming, yeah.
You know, restoration projects are inherently difficult. They can often be quite slow because you're tinkering away with the fabric of the building to restore it in the most beautiful way possible. But at the same time, the building process needs quick decisions and a lot of forward thinking. And what I'm worried about is with Ali going back to work, Matt being in work full time, neither of them are really on site. But they're not making the decisions early enough. And the problem then is that everyone on site gets frustrated, the bill takes longer, and in the end, it all costs more money.
Summer has arrived at the pumping station, and as the days grow longer, Ali and Matt are pushing on with the restoration. But local builder Dave, who they've hired as their site manager, is away on holiday. This means there's a lull in the structural work, but it has given Ali and Matt more time to make some much-needed decisions.
I think it's come in fits and starts. We've been perhaps a little bit relaxed for the last month or so because our site manager went on holiday. We've got everything planned out, got the timetable, got all the materials sorted, got all the suppliers sorted, so it should be hell for leather, apart from the windows, which we absolutely don't have sorted yet. The challenge when you do stuff yourself is you're the last person to deliver. So actually all of the suppliers are waiting on information from us. Absolutely have to make a decision in the next month, 2 weeks, on what we're going to do with the windows. Full stop.
With both of them struggling to decide what kind of windows to go for, I've decided to bring them here, the Hampton Waterworks in southwest London. It was built by Sir James Wrestler and completed in 1886, just 2 years before our pumping station. It's a massive complex, but there's one building in particular I'd like them to see, to show Ali and Matt how beautiful it is to keep a traditional Victorian style.
The windows are spectacular. We've definitely drawn something up which is very similar to this.
The last time we talked about this, there was well, I was going to say a bit of indecision, but a lot of indecision about whether they were going to be wooden or steel, and whether they were going to feel modern or traditional.
There's no doubt in my mind at all that we have to do the building justice by having some element of tradition in it. Utilitarian, but just with some historic detailing.
For Ali and Matt, as designers, it's all about the look. Wooden frames would be half the cost, but thicker and less elegant. The more expensive option is steel frames with more window bars, which will be more decorative and traditional. An added expense is the option for any window panes to open.
So you're thinking now you go for a single bar in the middle, vertically?
Yep.
There's still no question for me that it's got to be steel windows.
Just have really beautiful windows and bugger all else in there.
Yeah, that's right.
Nothing.
And a much bigger mortgage.
At the build, thankfully for Matt and Ali, Dave, their site manager, is back from holiday, and things are cracking on.
That's all right.
All the block work is now finished and they're starting to break through into the boiler room where they're currently living to connect the two buildings. And with Ali and Matt taking a 2-week break at home, they're hoping they can lend a hand at every turn. Today they're finally having the heat source pump and underfloor heating fitted by Tony, their heating engineer. This costs 30% more than a traditional boiler and radiator system, and there seems to be a problem with the delivery.
This is not a system that we agreed.
It seems that the wrong system has been ordered, and they're left with a very expensive option that won't fit into their floor plan.
The logistics of this now, on top of that plastic, it's going to be a nightmare to walk on it. The whole thing's just going to be floating around everywhere.
There's that 400, really.
The supplier has specified something
Different to what Tony and I were expecting.
It will cause another delay waiting for the right system, but if they stick with the one they've got, it's going to add to the strained budget.
We're possibly paying for a whole load of polystyrene and bits and pieces that we didn't need, and then we'll be paying Tony again to fit them all. So it's sort of double up on the cost for us. Then it could up cost significantly for us. I wouldn't like to get on the wrong side of Tony. I suppose when you're managing a job like this, it probably comes down to us to make sure that everything's right.
With Tony busy on the phone trying to sort out the mess with the supplier, Matt decides to leave it to the experts. Inside, Dave's got his own set of problems, as Ali and Matt, who are now on site every day, have the opportunity to change their minds if things are not exactly how they want them.
They're designers, but not in the construction industry. That makes them almost like frustrated architects. Aesthetically, they know what they want, but how you achieve that is another thing. A bit like most of the architects today.
Dave's not convinced about choosing steel rather than wood for the windows. With their budget of £60,000, he doesn't know how they'll be able to fund the extra cost.
Timber windows here could cost 12 grand in this part. You were talking about 30,000 in metal windows. Oh yeah, you're talking about a big, big difference.
With Ali and Matt both working full-time and having to look after the kids, Dave is doing everything he can to push things along.
It's not going quick enough. You didn't send them drawings over for the windows?
I didn't.
Okay. If I start chasing you now and I'm too...
Please,
just say...
you just tell us what we need to do.
Yeah.
We're on a timeline now, and we know we are.
Yeah.
So you just, if we're slack.
Although Ali and Matt have at last made their decision on what materials they want to use for the windows, what's holding the process up now is the exact design of the window panes.
If you give a designer something to do, they will never finish it. You work up to the deadline all the time, and without a deadline, you just keep on going.
That's massively wrong.
While the issue of the underfloor heating has been resolved, and Dave continues to chase Ali and Matt for decisions, I'm keen to find out more about the pumping station's history. At the beginning of the 19th century, the Lee Valley became one of Britain's leading exporters of fruit and veg. So I've come to Valley Grown Nurseries to meet local historian Jim Lewis, who has some old maps that show the impact our pumping station had on the local economy.
This is a map of the Cheshunt area, 1916. You can see all these black areas here, and these are the glass houses.
Why was our pumping station so important to these nurseries?
The pumping station is on top of the hill, because they want to gravity feed the water down the hill.
Yeah.
The pumping station did have a 250-foot drill hole going right down to the water table. So you can begin to see all these nurseries have now sort of grown up around it. And then when you come to the 1960s, you really had a sea of glass here now. Cheshunt really was one of the largest areas of glass in the world.
In the world?
It's about 445 hectares of glass at its peak. It was a massive industry.
With our pumping station providing this much-needed water supply to the local economy, it confirms that this building is an incredibly important industrial landmark. After After more than 6 months of deliberation, Ali and Matt have finally made a decision on their window design. With the windows playing such an important part of this restoration, I've come to see what they'll look like.
So the more expensive option, but the neater option, is to go for a steel section. That becomes a beautiful central glazing bar, doesn't it? Yeah. It becomes a beautiful glazing bar horizontally. I mean, that'd look really, really nice.
This, for me, is the best option for the building, but it will be significantly more expensive. The other option is finding a way for the windows to open without impeding the structure of the building.
You can't have an outward opening window.
Yes.
Bottom, because it can't pass through there.
Yeah.
Again, at the top, you can't have an inward opening window.
Because it'll hit the floor.
At that point.
Yeah.
So now you've got to juggle all of those things, because we would like opening windows a lot.
Yeah.
With this in mind, they designed a final window frame that resolves all of these design issues.
Well, I think after literally going around the houses and the pumping stations and seeing as many options as you possibly can to do windows, I think this is probably the best option for you.
If they want to complete the build before Christmas, these windows will need to be fitted quickly.
So this is looking good? Yeah. Your windows are out?
But the harsh reality is that they've had to apply to extend their mortgage in order to pay for them.
How much money have you actually got in the bank?
We've got 25 left in the bank at the moment. That'll take us to the end of the month.
Okay, so you're remortgaging?
We're remortgaging to the tune of another 50k, but...
So it's been a big project, but extending your mortgage and having to go back to work and all your earnings going into it as well and juggling the bill and all the costs, it must be a hell of a job.
Personally, I never worry about spending money. I worry about wasting money. And I don't think we're wasting a penny here. And from that point of view, I feel comfortable about what we're doing.
I mean, what happens if you don't get that mortgage extension? For any reason? Any reason?
We won't be able to fit the windows. But we have commissioned the manufacturer of them already.
Paid a deposit?
Yeah. Paid 50% deposit. So,
well, you're kind of in it, aren't you?
Yeah. But we find a way.
Well...
Yeah, we're in it, don't worry. It'll be fine.
You spend all of your money on this build.
Of course.
Yeah, every penny of it.
Of course.
Everything.
Yeah, of course. It's not a complaint. It's a restoration and a home for a long time. And we love it. I will get the money from somewhere. We will.
Looking around, I can see the build is moving on. But it's the new financial burden that worries me most. And with the building deemed uninhabitable, there's no guarantee they'll get their extra funding. 4 weeks later, and the day of reckoning has arrived. Ali and Matt's mortgage application has been approved, and they can finally afford the new windows for the engine room. It's taken 6 months to decide on the design, and they've cost £30,000. That's 50% of their original total budget.
The windows are the big deal, really. When they go in today, that will be, champagne time, really.
But even before their new expensive windows can be fitted, there's a problem with the steel frames.
Tricky one. So, I don't know what we're going to do with this, but it needs some sort of trim.
Ali and Matt have gone to huge expense of repairing the bricks on the inside, but the bricks on the outside are so damaged that the frames won't fit in the carefully measured openings.
So, we need to get more brickwork done, more time, more money. Quite a lot more money, probably. So, but that's the way it goes.
The replacement windows seem to be causing problems at every turn. This oversight will mean more delays and heap further costs onto Ali and Matt, which could push this restoration project over the edge. When I first visited Ali and Matt Gray nearly a year ago, they had ambitious plans to restore this glorious, abandoned Victorian water pumping station. They had upsized from a small two-bedroom flat in London with their young family, and temporarily taken up residence during the build in the next-door boiler room, which they plan to renovate at a later date. Phase 1 of this restoration has been the engine room, which they wanted to convert into their new home. The major cost and design decisions in this project have always centred around replacing all the UPVC windows. and when the new ones finally arrived, they didn't fit, adding further costs to an already overstretched budget.
Quite a lot more money, probably.
I'm back to find out if they've finally resolved the problem with the windows, and to see if they've managed to restore and move into this fabulous Victorian building.
So lovely to see you.
Morning.
You're there.
I think we've done it. Yeah. I think we've done it. Yeah.
Which is incredible.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible. And the first thing that jumps out is the new windows.
I know.
They're in.
Beautiful. I
mean,
can't
look.
believe they're ours.
I think the number of discussions we've had,
Yeah.
all the thought that's gone into that one element of the design, but it was probably the most important one, isn't it? I think it looks lovely. Absolutely perfect. The right colour, right proportion, and the right look for this building.
Thank you very much.
Should we go inside and have a look? Lead the way. Home sweet home.
The plan for phase 1 of the pumping station was to create a complete living space for all the family to enjoy. And they've literally just finished. What used to be a giant space where the industrial machinery once sat is now a stylish kitchen diner, which combines the traditional Victorian brickwork with clean modern finishes.
What a change. What a transformation. When you think about how much this was a real mess and the slab that you had to break out and all the digging out and the stripping back.
What looks even more impressive is the way the new windows complement the interior space.
Yeah, I think you don't really need paintings in this room, even though we've got one, because that's the painting.
To me, that really looks like a really elegant way of restoring a building like this. You know, the new windows are beautiful, highly engineered, along with, you know, the stone mullions, the stone sill, the beautiful detailing of the brickwork, the pointing, which I think is a really lovely thing anyway, alongside a new white internal skin. That is about dragging a building into the 21st century, but really respecting the qualities that it has.
It took Ali and Matt 6 months to decide the window design and cost them half their original budget of £60,000. In the end, I think they've chosen the perfect style. Using thin steel frames painted black gives them a sleek, modern look.
The more I look at them, the more beautiful they are. And they open as well. This was a big debate, wasn't it? Look at that. Very simple. And it's really nice that the whole panel goes out as well.
Yeah.
The stone that Ali and Matt reclaimed from the building has been reused as a reminder of what was there once before.
You got the slabs in?
Yes, we've got the slabs back.
The slabs are in!
They are.
Look at that!
Still with holes intact.
It's a lovely gesture, that, isn't it? Just a little kind of imprint, if you like, in memory of those massive, huge blocks that were there.
And the same stone we delicately cut into thin tiles has been cleverly used in the luxurious downstairs bathroom. They've knocked through to what will be phase 2 of the restoration, but until they integrate the existing spiral stair, to see upstairs, a ladder will have to do.
And then you've got this. Literally the breakthrough, because you've connected your phase 1 restoration and your home and phase 2 on the other.
Yeah.
It's very brutal, isn't it?
It's pretty brutal. It really is.
It's quite odd.
It's quite abrupt, isn't it?
Yes.
From that, which looks kind of amazing with all of your hard work and effort, and that, which is in effect really someone else's house. So you haven't quite got a proper staircase for this section. That's mad. Should we go up the ladder then?
Yes.
Now they have the funds from their extended mortgage, phase 2 of this project can begin. Once upstairs, I can see that Ali and Matt have turned what was previously a blank canvas into beautiful family bedrooms.
Oh my word. Incredible.
We want to sleep in here.
I'm not surprised. I want to sleep in here. I've always liked the plan anyway, that you have 2 rooms linked together. And obviously at some point, if you needed to subdivide this as the girls got older, they could still have their separate rooms. It's quite easy to carve into 2 zones, isn't it? Yes. But the beautiful part about it really is seeing the all timber truss and that kind of double height space. It's magical.
Being closer to the stunning roof, I can see that Ali and Matt have done a fantastic job in combining the existing structure of the building into their new design.
You've had to work with all the period features. I mean, you've got that huge ledge, which has always been there. And I think even the way you framed the windows is lovely as well. You've just got the tiling at the right point, and they're just beautifully sitting there, framed.
Ali and Matt have saved the best to last. Their new master bedroom suite is simple, beautiful and stylish.
Oh, it's incredible. When you're doing a restoration project, there's lots of simple things you need to do to get it right. And you've ticked the box of all the right things. You've kept the ceiling height, so it feels like it's a lofty and it's an airy space. You've made all the period features literally shine out and sing. I mean, that truss is beautiful. You've got wonderful top light with the skylights that you've got in here. You've got a room where actually all the wall surfaces are really, really important. You've got a fantastic piece of furniture there at the back, and at the same time, you're framing the three most important parts of the wall. 2 arches there, the big main arch there, and the 2 arches there.
Ali and Matt have really agonised over this building. In the end, they've achieved a wonderful restoration, but it's come at a price.
So a very big question. How much have you spent to get to this stage?
I said that we were hoping to do 60k for the basic build, not including the windows, and not including the expensive interiors. So basically, we spent 30k on the windows, or thereabouts.
Half your budget.
Another 30k on the fittings.
60.
Yeah. And we reckon we spent about 80 on the basic build.
So with your original budget, excluding the windows and the fittings, you're at 60.
Yeah.
But with everything in, altogether, you spent 140,000.
Yeah.
Today, the kids finally get the chance to see their brand new bedrooms, now that this once utilitarian building has been transformed into a family home.
Open your eyes.
So what do you think?
I don't think I've seen someone so happy.
This one is your new bed.
It's been a grueling but rewarding restoration journey for Ali and Matt, but it wouldn't have been possible without a lot of local help. And Dave, their site manager, is back to see the pumping station in all its glory, and as ever is on hand to offer advice.
The most important thing is to get your ideas down on paper before you do anything else. You know, but at the end of the day, this works out. It looks lovely.
I think it's time to celebrate.
I'd say so.
3, 2, 1. I've got a little present for you.
Lovely.
The book.
Can't wait for this.
The pumping station book. There's us on the first day. Custodians of the new building.
Lovely.
And there you are. You've proven yourselves to be true restoration heroes.
And I've got one final gift for Ali and Matt, as a remembrance of what this water pumping station once was, now that it's been restored and brought back to life.
Ooh, what's this?
So to hang proudly somewhere is some original prints of the inside of the space.
Yeah, thank you. Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations. It's always difficult taking on a restoration project where someone else has had a go, because you're constantly having to correct their mistakes. And I always knew that would be the replacement of the old windows with the new that would be the make or break of this project. And it's been a really tough build. 2 designers striving for design perfection while battling against a very limited budget and always having to compromise. It's been worth it. Ali and Matt have turned an abandoned building into the most fantastic family home.
To collect information and inspiration from the show in your own online scrapbook, or if you have a project you'd like to be featured in the next series, go to channel4.com/George. Next time, I meet a couple of serial restorers who take on the ultimate challenge.
I don't know, it looks pretty horrific to some people.
It is!
But will they cope when costs spiral out of control?
We're raiding every penny we've got to finish this.
And that next time is the same time, 8 o'clock next Thursday. And we've another property favourite returning. A new series of Location starts next Tuesday at 8. Next tonight, travellers travelling. Some big trips planned in my big, fat gypsy holiday.